Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Calm Convos with Paige. This week we are discussing therapy and why it matters in all aspects of your life. Stay tuned. So before we dig into this episode, I do want to share a little disclaimer that therapy is important for me. So I might be a little biased and this might be a little persuasive, like maybe you should try a little bit of therapy after this episode. So I really just want to start with talking about what made me start therapy and how that process has been for me in therapy. So I have been in therapy it's been years, but I've had several different therapists. When I first started therapy, I think the therapist wasn't a fit for me. Like, she was kind, she was, textbook therapist, counselor. But I think there was something she said. I remember she said something about like commenting on my appearance because like I'm thin. And back when I started, I was thinner than what I am now. And that comment really bugged me a little bit because I feel like you don't know what other people think about themselves or their perception of themselves. So for her to comment on my body type was like, all right, I'm not feeling that. So I decided to seek a therapist because there were things going on with me that I was not comfortable with. At the time that I started, I was in a relationship with my kid's father, which I think that the relationship was fine when I first started therapy. I just think that it was things that I wasn't expressing. Not because anything that anyone else has said or done, but because I just didn't have those boundaries in place. And my self-esteem wasn't where it is now, thankfully. But I just was not operating like at my best self. So I went to see a therapist. And like I said, that first one didn't work out. And back then, I guess I could have expressed it to her that something that she said upset me or bothered me, and then we could have explored that a little bit further. But I just chose to not go back to that, and I found another therapist, and she was a Black woman. I think my main thing is I need a Black person for my therapist, because I want someone that relates to me. So after that didn't work, I sought out another one, and she was really kind. She was also a Black woman, but she was also in school. So I think I saw her for a little while, and we were really talking about self-esteem and like my goals and aspirations, things that I want to do, because once I had got into my relationship, I kind of lost a sense of myself, and I was really focused on my relationship. How do I keep this man around? How do I make him happy, and I was losing sight of what made me happy. So during those sessions, that's what we would talk about. Mind you, I was still in school and I was working, but it was like, what do I do after I leave here? What do I want to do after I leave this job? It wasn't like a career for me. So I think we kind of, I think when I started seeing her, I had my son already. So the sessions would kind of spread out. Like I couldn't make it some weeks. And then I think she started canceling too because of her school. And eventually, like, she had left that company, and they had switched like my case over to another girl that was there. But she was also in school, and she was a white girl. No shade.
You're going to talk about why it's important to have a black therapist and a black person sometimes.
You know what? She's not my first choice that I would have chosen, but I'm grateful for that experience, as with a lot of things in my life. Because at that point, I was like, okay, maybe we should try some couples counseling, because he wasn't into therapy at all. And I don't really think he understood like why I was going. So I was like, okay, come to the session with me. Let's talk about some stuff. And I guess it was fine to have a different perspective from, someone who doesn't understand our perspectives and our experience. But she just was really young. And I think that was also a barrier in the couples aspect of it, but also my own experience, because it's like, I think I might have been older than her. So it was like, girl, on top of you being a white girl, which, no offense, I'm not taking away her credential or her, what's the word I'm looking for? Not her credential, but like, I'm not taking away from where she is in her education and her background, but just being able to relate was not there for me. Because when I see a therapist, I like someone who has that wisdom that I may not have, and maybe is judgmental. I can call myself out on it. I just didn't think she would have had that, on top of being from a different culture. So I left there and went to, I was probably seeing her for like a month or two. Went to another place, but I think it might have been some time had passed and I wasn't going to therapy, but I was still journaling. That's one thing that I did pick up, was journaling, because I had already, like, since I was a kid, I love to write. I love poetry. I love stories. If I had a pen or a pencil or crayon, whatever, I write it wherever, just to get my thoughts on that paper. So I was still journaling in the meantime of not having a therapist. But I ended up finding another therapist when I was pregnant with my daughter. And I think it was after my daughter got here, actually.
How many years after the couples therapist and the second therapist after that?
I don't know, it might have been like 2 years had passed. I don't know. I don't think I had anybody else in between there. Mm-hmm. But I was journaling and writing. And then I got pregnant with my daughter, and it was so much going on during that pregnancy. Just me and my kid's father had broke up, And I was feeling a lot of different things about having a child with someone that I'm not in a relationship with. So that was a roller coaster for me. And so I found another therapist.
How did you find the therapist too?
So I go to Psychology Today, and on there it's a website. They let you filter how you want, what you need, who you want to see, what their specialties are. And that's pretty much how I had been finding everyone else. So then I got hit to Ohio Guidestone. And that's when I found the therapist that I have, well, not have now, but had before this therapist. She was with Ohio Guidestone. And she was a Black lady. She wasn't that much older than me, but she was very in touch and in tune with like her spiritual side, and I think that's why I gravitated towards her, because at the time I was going through, and even before that time, but just the whole like relationship, I was going through like finding who I am, what my purpose is here, spirituality, faith, all of that. And so it was like once I found her and then I would talk to her about those things, she was able to like connect with me on that and help me to see, like, because I get in my head sometimes and I used to think like the worst about myself. And so for people who don't know, spirituality can get really dark depending on what spirits you are paying attention to. Oh. Just having that to say, you know, she was like very pro-Black spirituality, you know, like the things that we do impact our children and our future generations. So that I really liked about that therapist. Then she was pregnant during our time together, and she left, but she was so beautiful. I loved her. And then I have the therapist that I have now, which, she be getting me together.
How long have you been going with her?
I have been with her since 2020, 2020, or maybe the end of 2019, 2020, because I remember pandemic. Yeah, and that was a difficult transition because I had enjoyed the sessions that I had with my previous therapist. So when they were saying she was leaving, I was like a little bit attached. Like, I don't want to talk to nobody else. I like who I like, and I liked her. So I don't want to talk to this new lady. So in the beginning, I was like, I can't make this appointment. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you ready for your session? And I'll be like, I'm kind of busy. I can't talk today. I'm glad that we talked and I was able to like build that relationship with her to where I was comfortable expressing what was going on for me, because there's always something going on with me. Again, we talked about, she's also not very religious, but spiritual, and she's an older Black woman, but it's not like my mother, because at first I was like, why I only want older Black women? Do I look like I need a mama or something? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it's really just that wisdom that comes with sometimes
with age, yeah.
Because I have met and know plenty of grown ass kids. I'm not in the business of teaching no adult how to be an adult, but I digress.
I was going to ask you about, for people listening who haven't been to therapy or only go to the like first few sessions and they're just like, I don't like that they're only asking me about stuff and we didn't get to discuss things. Can you talk about that? Like making sure you figure out how you like your therapist without immediately quitting.
Okay, so I actually had that experience with the therapist that I have now. And I did tell her that, you know, I don't think that we talk about the things that I want to talk about as much. Like at first the sessions were really like, okay, what's been going on? Anything, you know, you want to talk about? And then I would run off like, well, this what happened today, this what happened yesterday, and it was just very like shallow. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to her and I said, you know, we're not talking about other things that I want to discuss. You know, I have some issues that I don't think I've talked about with my other therapist. Like at what point did my self-esteem just drop? Mm-hmm. Like, at what point did I start talking to myself and my self-talk being so negative? And she was like, and I told her, like, I think I want to look for another therapist. I was very, very honest and transparent with her. And she was like, okay, thank you for telling me that. And she was like, well, I just really go with what you want to do. She's like, I go with how far you want to go. So if that's what you're comfortable talking about, then we'll talk about that. But she's like, it's up to you. These are your sessions. And I was like, you know what? I'm the boss here. Mm-hmm. That's what you telling me. Because essentially we are in control of our own lives. And as a therapist, myself, and being in the whole social work field, the main thing is knowing that the client is the expert in their own life. So if I wasn't ready to talk about deeper issues than just the situational events that just happened or recent current events or stuff like that, then she wasn't going to push it. And so since then it was like, she was like, I'm glad that you said something. Now we can get deeper if that's what you want to do. And so after that I was like, okay, well, let's go, Alice. Let's go down this hole in Wonderland. So I think that the main thing is to stick it out for a minute, do a couple sessions, and see how you click with this person, because I know that I don't like telling people my business. So even if it is your job and confidentiality says you can't tell my business to other people, but you still have to be comfortable with who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm. But communicating in the end helps it out.
Yeah.
Because I kind of see that. Yeah. Letting them know what you actually want to do is pertinent advice. I guess for me too, along with the rest of the listeners.
Yeah.
I'm sure, who don't like realize that. Yeah, it's up to them how far they go in the session. Helpful the advice is awesome. You can give feedback. They're not gonna quit. Or they're
not gonna get up and walk out during a session. You know what? I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah. I don't actually want to hear about your childhood issues.
Yeah.
I liked having small talk.
Yeah, let's do small talk the whole hour or 30 minutes. My sessions are an hour. Sometimes they go over to like an hour 45.
Hour 45?
Yeah, she be getting all her productivity.
Mm-hmm. I wish. Mine end up being like an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, only if she doesn't have like a busy day or whatever. Because she could be like, okay, well, we have an hour today. Mm-hmm. Let's keep it You know, keep it cute, keep it quick. But I did want to say that her saying that to me and saying, thank you for telling me how you feel about the sessions, it made me feel a little confident in myself, like kind of boosted my self-esteem, like, oh, I can say what I want and not be met with like a fight or an argument. Yeah, like how dare you ask for what you need? Like that made me feel good. So it was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I was walking like this. You know what? I could ask for you. I don't want no pickles on my sandwich. Take them pickles off.
But in therapy, instead of rolling their eyes at the back counter, they're like, okay, I got you. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way that we should be reacting. I guess if you've gone to therapy, that's the way you respond. The benefit.
Everybody don't go to therapy though.
No. This is why it's important. Because you'll get your self-esteem up and you'll respond out of kindness rather than malice, or hopefully if you have the right therapist. Malice,
anger, offense. You know, people who don't do that self-work, they get offended.
And it's not by you, it's by something else going on, but then you're the reaction, the place that they can react.
The scapegoat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bing! Good point.
Yes.
Okay. I think that on top of, the personal growth that I got from therapy, or that I'm currently getting from therapy, it also helps me to parent better to my children, because I'm a lot more self-aware in who Jules is, what Jules needs, what Jules wants. And so when I can recognize that, I can be better for my children. For example, so both of my children were breastfed babies up until they were 2 years old. That's another topic for another day. And so we are very close with each other. And sometimes I think that their love language might be like physical touch. So they gotta sit next to me. Their hand gotta be on my leg. They wanna hug. They wanna interrupt. Like if they was here right now, they would probably interrupt this because they need a hug. They need some mommy. So because I am aware that I love a good hug, but I don't want to hug all the time. So I can set that boundary and say, okay, I love y'all. We gonna do this right now, and then y'all gonna go. Don't touch me. Because I get overstimulated. I am very much an introvert, very much a Capricorn. So
what does that mean?
That means that I like to be alone. I'm very reserved. I'm very independent. I could do this by myself unless I want company. So with kids, you can't just kick them out. Basically, I mean, I can't just neglect my children.
Yes.
So me being self-aware about what I need and when I need that alone time, when I need to practice that self-care so that I can recharge and then show up for them, whatever. Because, I mean, at this point, they are dependent on me for everything in their lives. And if I clock out, they might clock out, but like not
in a positive.
Not in like I could clock out and then I'll snap back, but if I clock out and neglect them, they might not make it. So because life is hard. But I make sure that some self-care is in there somewhere. So if I need to take a hot bath, if I need to watch a TED Talk, something that stimulates me and fills me back up so that I can be a mama to them and be attentive of what they need and teach them coping skills. When you feel overstimulated, what do you do respectfully? Because I'm not going to say, get the fuck away from me, even though in my brain, I'm like, kids got cooties, get the fuck away from me. But I can't say that. That's not respectful. So it's like, okay, mom needs a minute. What do I need to do to get myself back to where I can provide for them?
Therapy has given you the tools to be able to communicate better with that.
Yes. And really sit and evaluate what it is that I need. Because I'm able to talk about, I go in venting about, I need this, I need that, I'm tired of this and that. Oh, okay, Jules, what have you done this week for yourself? Oh, you know what? Nothing. But next week I'm gonna do better, because the more that I talk about it, the more that I complain or vent, the more I'm able to see that a pattern and what happens when I don't do this. This happens when I don't do that. Burnout happens when I'm not taking care of myself. As far as therapy and how it's impacted my relationships and friendships, I think that in the beginning, it was very hard for the people around me who were not in therapy to accept that I am in therapy, I am working on myself, I want better for myself, and some of these boundaries gonna have to get put in place. That was hard for them to accept, because it was like, when you get used to something, you don't want it to stop. I had a very, very hard time saying no to people. Like, I felt like if I ever did say no, I had to give 100 reasons why to kind of make up for me saying no. Like, oh, no, I can't take you to wherever you need to go because I don't have gas and I gotta go and do some homework and I need to do this and that. And it's like, no, because I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's it. No is a complete sentence. I mean, I don't say no like just to be a bitch. Like, I'm not gonna say no if it's something that I have the capacity to do and it's not like a big inconvenience. Because granted, I do still do things when it's not convenient for me, but I'm not doing it excessively to where now I'm violating my own boundaries and what I need. Yeah, no is probably the hardest thing that my family struggled with. I love my mother, love her down, but having to tell her, Mom, I'm in a relationship, this is my man, these are my kids, and you don't get to tell me what I should do, what you would have did. Okay, Bookie.
How's that conversation go?
Because it was like, this is my life. And that was one thing that I had to stop doing, was sharing every piece of my life with other people. So for me, at first, it would be like I'm venting, I'm expressing how I feel, and then it would turn into now I'm gossiping. Because that essentially what it is. Once it goes from there's a purpose for what I'm saying to I'm just saying it just because it's something to say, then it becomes gossip.
Think about it like that.
And what I was doing was gossiping about my boyfriend to my mother. Basic, I mean, call it what it is. That's what I was doing. Oh, he didn't do this today. He didn't do that. Like, there's no purpose. What was the intent behind that?
Mostly being upset and not having I guess you didn't have the space to like make sure you communicated with him, but
right.
There were other factors back.
Yeah. And I could have said those things to him, but instead I was calling my mama like, yeah, let me tell you what he did today. I don't like it. And it was like, okay, now what did that solve? Because all it did was put in my mom's mind that I'm not happy, I don't like this person, and you shouldn't either. Mm-hmm. And then that, would come into our relationship, because if me and him are getting into an argument, or if he's doing something that I've told her that I don't like, whether I express it to him or not, she's jumping in thinking she needs to defend me. Mm-hmm. And that's not her place or her role. But because I gave her that information, so I had to learn to keep people out of my relationship. Not just my mother, my friends, family. Yeah. And with other, like my friendships that I have too, is like, I am not jumping in your stuff. And so it would be, they would come to me and do basically the same thing, gossiping. And it's like, well, what do you want? Like, now that I am a little bit more mature in my therapy, I'm like, okay, what do you want from that? What do you need from that? Have you talked to him about that? Like, I'm not gossiping back with it. I'm like, come up with a solution.
Mm-hmm. Like, what? Have you talked to them about it? That's all.
Yeah, like, have you talked to him? Because you telling me I'm not your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever.
It's not going to change until you talk to the person about it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. That's my therapy talk. But
nothing changes unless something changes.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone.
But you talked about how people didn't view you going to therapy well, and kind of how that ties into the view that people just have about therapy in general.
You know what?
Destigmatizing.
A lot of people think that therapy is just, I'm going to tell this stranger my business. Which, I mean, on the surface, yeah, I'm telling them my business. This is stuff that I'm going through. This is stuff that's happening. But it's more than that. These people are, myself included, educated on relationships, educated on development. And I mean, I'm a social worker. So that's the people that we are around, the environment that we are a part of. And there's no reason you shouldn't be able to go and talk to someone who doesn't have any stake in your life. Like, this person is an outside perspective. This person if you stop going to them today, they would not have any place in your life at that point. They're not like your relationship won't be affected. Like, if you go and say every thought that you have with a family or friend, it might not come off the same way because they have feelings for you. So it's like, if I tell my therapist, I really just don't like XYZ that somebody does. My therapist gonna be like, okay, let's talk about it. Why? If I say that to that person, most times people get defensive. And
or have some bias, even if it's
yeah,
stranger to them.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think everybody should go to therapy, even if it's just to say whatever it is that you feel, and have someone who is unbiased and indifferent just listen to you. And maybe they'll ask you a question that you didn't even think to ask yourself, like, why do you feel that way? What do you think about that? Or my therapist likes to challenge my thought processes, especially since I've known her for so long, that it's like, or since I've been going to her for so long, she'll be like, what's going on? Like, if I say something that's just something I would have said a year ago, she'll be like, what's going on? This doesn't sound like you. Something must have happened. And she can notice that I've had that growth, and then she can also, comment and be like, you kind of regressing a little bit. What's happening? What's going on? And call it out. Whereas a family member or friend who's not trained to look for those things can just join in with whatever you feel and go along with it. Like, no, sometimes you need that reality check. And granted, thank God I have family and friends that I can say something and they'll be like, I don't know, Jules. I don't know, Jules. You think that was the best thing for you to text? Some people will check me. I have a cousin who will be like, you said that. Whereas, some people don't have that in family or friends, so going to that therapist might be that benefit to help improve your relationships.
Yeah, because the therapist wants you to be better and what's best for you. Unless you have a good cousin like which is like rare to find.
Shout out to my cousins.
You might not get that in everyday life.
But she's also in therapy. So she's also in therapy. So,
Please don't piggyback on anybody else's therapy by asking them what they learned. But if you can't afford it.
You know what?
For now.
You know what? We do that where we share gems. Like, oh, you know what my therapist said this week? What'd she say, girl?
It's a nice conversation to have.
Yeah, because now we swapping, oh, well, my therapist told me this about this. And now we talking about what we learned. And we got a free therapy session without seeing a therapist. Because we passing notes. We gonna make a spark notes about therapy.
A book that's as big as, I would say, the Harry Potter books, but that's going through too much. So like a Bible-sized.
Yeah. That's cool. We should probably do that. I'm gonna trademark it. It's gonna be called
Therapy Notes.
Spark Notes Therapy. Therapy Spark Notes. Therapy for dummies.
Or just like a Wikipedia that's just therapy.
So I am glad that y'all joined me for this episode talking about therapy and why it matters to me. And hopefully someone will change their opinion or perspective and seek out the help that they may or may not need. I want to say that if you're looking for a therapist or a counselor, whatever you want to call it, you can always check with your insurance and they'll tell you who's in the network, who can you go to, where it's at, all of the good things. And also, I find my therapist sometimes on Psychology Today. We are not sponsored by them, so, this is not biased. It just gives you a list of a bunch of different therapists, where they're located, and you can call them and get a consultation, whatever you need. And also, I think that we should just consider something different, something new. If you can't afford it, call them anyway, because a lot of companies will offer like a sliding scale, or they can maybe point you to somewhere to get you the help to pay for it. Just don't call me, because I don't get paid for it. So thanks for joining me on this episode, and I will see you next time on Calm Convos. You cannot just stiff arm Heisman them. Is that called the Heisman? You don't know football.
No.
Oh, I know you don't. Don't even pretend.
Yes, it is. I know.
Just
all by myself.
Did you Google it?
No, I just looked at my memories of watching football as a child. Does it sound like I'm telling the truth?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, and hanging out with my boss watching the Super Bowl.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
I mean, sure, I believe you.